Hi, friends, and welcome to episode 7 of Movies and Mayhem. Today, we'll fill you in on our current movie making. Aaron will talk aspect ratios. Why do those black bars keep changing? We'll review the movie, The Lighthouse, before wrapping it all up with some movie-themed trivia.
Movies and Mayhem.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kate, the resident screenwriter, director, and all-around brat. We have Aaron, the resident director of photography, composer, and that sound guy.
Hello.
And then we have Chris, resident producer, food person, everything else we don't want to do.
Hello, humans. I should have had Aaron do it because he can do the robot voice better than me. Do it real quick. Say hello, humans.
I will destroy. I don't know. I don't really have a good robot voice.
He can't perform robot noises on demand. I've seen him do it. I promise he can do it. I've seen him.
He also has you two fists in it over there?
Maybe extrapolate on that.
I think a lot of our listeners will probably know what two-fisting means. AKA, you have 2 cups of alcohol.
Edward 40 hands.
Exactly. We're all adults here.
I did give him a little Becker-Ovka along with myself before this episode. So this should be a very lively episode.
And then I poured myself a gin and tonic before you guys got here. So
yeah, he didn't pour me one. Come on.
We're keeping it light.
Come on, man.
I mean, you honestly should be pouring one for all our listeners who have to put up with the notes you have for this episode.
Yes, they are in depth. I'm pouring it out for the homies.
So be prepared, friends. You might want to skip ahead in a few parts. When it gets lengthy, we won't judge you.
Thanks.
But before we get to all that and we talk about all the things technical and movie review and all that, it's time to just talk about ourselves a little bit. You know, we've had to drink the pain away as COVID has consistently over and over thwarted our attempts to make movies, but we have finally come to a way to make a movie or something.
I am incredibly excited because sitting on the sidelines has been really, really hard, especially with all these new shows that have been coming out, movies. It's really been a struggle. So
how do we make a movie when COVID is around? Well, first off, you start with a good dose of friendship and trust.
And 1.5 cups of sugar. Stir fervently and put in the oven at 350.
For 2 hours.
Yeah.
No, but really. So we have made our own little safe group of quarantine
paranoid
buddies. No, it's true.
People.
It's true. I've had to kick a few people out of my group because of paranoia, but we have found other equally paranoid people who are willing to be paranoid with us and quarantine with us. And so we have grabbed them into our bubble and we have come up with a little idea that will use them as the actors and then the 3 of us as the set. You know, Aaron will be filming, I'll be directing, and Chris will hopefully be feeding them.
Yeah, I'll be doing what I do best, which is forgetting to feed people.
Yeah.
I was super excited that we did get other actors. Otherwise, I would have had to step up to the plate.
We know how that went in the last movie.
We all know how fantastic of an actor I am. That's why the movies never saw the day of light.
Well, it's very tasking. You know what I mean? You've got multiple roles to play, multiple hats, whatnot.
It's hard to think about things to feed people.
Yeah.
Honestly, COVID just did us a favor because reviewing some of the stuff we filmed before, I was just like, and I just don't want to act again. I'm not mad. I'll do cameos maybe in my future movies, but I can't wear the director's hat and the actor's hat and sound hat and I'm sorry.
I think it's, there's a lot of roles or particular roles that are of interest for you and for me and for Chris that, it's better to focus on a few rather than spread yourself too thin. So I think just having that lesson and learning that and moving forward, I think that's all good things.
And I think that's something if you're starting your own movie business to keep in mind as well. Like, what hats are you the most successful at? What hats can you share to people that will be more successful than you? AKA like Chris really handing out his hat of actor to other people. And how many hats can you carry on a small set as well? Because honestly, like me acting while also trying to be a director was just not possible. I couldn't focus and get into my character at the same time of thinking like, how is the shot going to look? And did it come out right? And it's very stressful.
And keeping in mind your overall goals of what you want to achieve in this particular industry and how long you've been at it. Maybe if you've been at it for a little bit longer, you might want to take on the challenge of something that is kind of on your weak side that you'd be interested in kind of building up a strength to and kind of being more well-rounded. Or maybe if you're a little bit greener to it, that you might want to just kind of focus in on your core structure of what you want to achieve.
And also swallowing your pride. So like in my case, I think that now that we have 2 people to act for us, I can swallow my pride. I wanted to be an actor, but I have a lot of work ahead of me. I'm not saying I can't be, but I have a lot of work ahead of me.
Well, just this whole, creating this type of art and the whole process is very humbling for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other big thing to really make good movies too is just quality. Like you definitely want to put like, if you know someone can do something better, you want to put out your best foot, especially to make it in the industry. And that can be just making sure you have the right people in the right places and recognizing the talent. And so for us, that's why we've decided to work with our friends and have them be the 2 actors in the movie, and we'll take our respective places. So I guess for us, the next step is we will be having a meeting to plan this filming day, which we're really excited about now that we've cast it. We have our dialogue figured out. We'll be doing like a quick lighting setup, some storyboarding just to make sure that we're all on like shots that we want to do. It's a very quick movie. It's really, really short. I'm thinking like maybe
more of a vignette.
Yeah, like not even a minute. I think it's kind of, we've been thinking since, we can't get the help that we would in making a bigger production. We were thinking of picking a theme and sticking with this vignette style for a little bit, maybe posting them on YouTube so that you all can watch and enjoy as well and see them. And so they'll all have like a core theme between them. And if this works, we will release what said theme will be. We're not there. We're not confident of yet, but we'll all have them in the same theme and they'll all be about the same length. And we will kind of work on this to like build and showcase some of our talent and our skill, and to also practice for when we can get back to making a bigger production. And we have a few things in mind. Chris actually had a really great idea last week that I loved to death. And so we're going to start outlining and thinking about that movie script and what we can create out of that. So we're very excited.
It's pretty crazy to think that we got together, I think last week, and discussed how all of us were in the same boat where we're like, we want to start filming again. Let's come up with an idea
just rather to break the rest off of it.
Yeah. Rather than all of us, one of us being like, oh no, I want to wait till we can, get more people to help us. No, we were all antsy to start again. And that's good because that means that we're all in this together and we're really excited about this.
Until Aaron lost his nerve.
What?
Oh, do you not remember losing your nerve? I said, we'll get actors. And you're like, well, no, never mind.
It was more of a self-reflection on the idea that I had and it not being valued enough to involve other people.
I think it was awesome.
They were excited. When we told them the idea, they actually were really excited.
Yes.
So
I gave them the rundown and told them exactly what they were doing. The gentleman was like, you really think I could pull this off? And I'm like, your character, just if you act like yourself, it is perfect for this role.
What is that saying about?
No.
I have an interesting comment there.
You will all understand why we say that when this one comes out.
But yeah, I mean, as far as this project, this vignette that we're doing, I guess, it's not as bad as long as we are able to put in the front load of the work and kind of plan everything out to kind of reduce time attachment for other people, just so that they aren't wow, this is taking forever or whatever.
Well, I think that definitely the great thing is how short this is, we could pull it off in a day. So I'm really excited about that. Well, hopefully. Not that there's anything going on in their lives. I think they really did bite because, boredom. There's nothing going on for us. And now I just need all of y'all to pray for us and dance the no rain dance and good weather dance so that we can stave off Seattle weather on the day that we want to film this. Because clue, guys, it's outside. So everyone just do your dance, the no rain dance.
Partially outside. Well, it's all outside. Partially under or overhang for a quick second.
That is true. So, but yeah, I'm excited, and hopefully we'll be filling you guys in. Like I said, we just talked about this and made the decision. We'll be holding our first meeting actually after we record this for dates and more information of how we're doing it. So we will give you guys as much feedback, information as we can as we go.
Yes. We'll keep you guys posted as we go along the journey of making it happen.
And hopefully that'll be entertaining for all of you. But up next, Aaron is going to discuss aspect ratios. So get those drinks ready and start shooting when he goes on long tangents.
All right. This week's Tech Talk is on aspect ratios. So aspect ratios. What the hell are these black bars? And why are they different sizes and keep changing, whatnot? So kind of a little bit of a background or an overview here. Video aspect ratios can be an important creative choice that can affect the feel of the footage.
This is not going back at all to the Lighthouse or anything.
No, not at all. I will tie it in though. It's a key technical consideration before you start shooting, and something that you would want to bring up and design from the start of the project, because it will affect everything moving forward. Despite the variations, virtually all cinematic imagery has been wider than it is tall. That is mainly in part due to the human stereo vision and the field of view in which it is able to perceive. The convention is to describe an aspect ratio using width first, then height. So the ratio can be expressed using either two integers, such as 3:2, or as normalized width relative to a unit height, such as 1.85:1. So going back in time, a little bit of history here. In the early days, 1.33:1 or 4:3 ratio was most commonly used aspect ratio for 35 millimeter full frame silent films, which in turn was chosen because 70 millimeter film was being mass produced for still photography. This then had to narrow slightly to 1.17:1 due to the unanticipated rise of talkies, or movies with audio.
Is that what they called it? They called it talkies?
They called it the talkies, yeah.
Yes.
Wow. I did not know that. Interesting. Huh.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Very
I'm here to
technical.
inform you in a lot of things.
Man.
So that the reason why that was shortened was because it required the space on that film for the audio track. So the audio track was being recorded on a portion of that film strip in conjunction with the actual visuals.
Okay, now there's something I didn't know.
Yeah. And then by 1932, the Academy of Motion Pictures agreed to revert back to a wider standard of 1.375:1. The Academy standard persisted until the development of the television, which drove film studios to distinguish themselves using an even wider ratio in the 1950s, such as Cinerama, which is 2.66:1, and VistaVision, which is up to 2:1 ratio. Cinerama used 3 cameras and 3 projectors to achieve a wider image, but it was a lot smoother than some of the other variations. In addition, it was projected onto a curved screen, thereby enhancing the immersiveness of its 2.59:1 ratio. While the technique of multi-camera, multi-projector setups weren't that cheap or practical, particularly that you could only have one focal length for all of those things at a time, the allure of widescreen proved too strong to ignore. As such, since Cinerama, moviegoers were inundated with various widescreen offerings. This was kind of a testing bed in time where they were testing out different aspect ratios and playing around with field of views to kind of give the moviegoers experience that much more.
And then stupid people like me would buy their DVDs in full screen because they didn't realize how cool that was.
Yeah. So then there was another iteration called CinemaScope, This managed a 2.35 to 1 ratio, so slightly less wide than Cinerama. But it was able to accomplish this with just one camera and projector in the theaters, using a anamorphic lens in order to achieve this. The camera must use a anamorphic lens to shoot the action. This was basically because the image of the 35 millimeter strip was going to be distorted to be able to shoot the action. But it was able to capture a higher quality because there was no wasted surface on the film strip. So in order to get the kind of squarish 4:3 aspect ratio of film strip to a wider, more human-oriented kind of field of view, they would use a oval anamorphic, and that's why anamorphics had their mainstay or kind of surge in popularity around kind of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, just because they were able to capture as much possible onto the film strip and create a wider, more high-definition view. As you would expect, these Hollywood types kind of started one-upping themselves. So even though CinemaScope worked well and was a lovely widescreen kind of version, there was MGM65, which boasted a aspect ratio of 2.76 to 1 on 70 millimeter film. And that was twice as large as the standard 35 millimeter film that was kind of everybody was used to. This was kind of one of those golden ages of greatness, and it was famously shown using the 1955 Ben-Hur film. Eventually, this started kind of leading on two standards. Normal 1.85 to 1 ratio for widescreen television and an anamorphic 2.39 or 2.4 to 1 widescreen for video or for cinemas. So in this kind of era, there was those different experiences where you'd get one that was not as widescreen for the television and you'd get the extra widescreen for the cinema. So it would kind of give this extra experience to the cinema goers, which would kind of get people out of their houses, away from their TVs, and into the movies. So kind of moving ahead in time, 16.9 kind of became a standard in everybody's home with TVs after the 4:3 aspect ratio kind of went out. And this was more of a happy medium compromise between the cinema world and the television world, where you would need less aspect ratio kind of black bars or letterboxing to provide kind of a better experience for both TV and movies on the kind of the same home screen.
So that's where the hell did those black bars go?
Yeah, and they've always been changing around based off of the source of the videos that you're watching and when they came out and whatnot. And the, like I was saying, for letterboxing, the padding of the footage with black strips at the top and the bottom is referred to letterboxing, whereas a similar but less common padding on the left and the right is called pillar boxing. So when you have a 4:3 ratio, aspect ratio show, like some older Simpsons episodes or, stuff from the 70s and 60s and 50s and whatnot, they have the vertical ones, which is called pillar boxing. I think it's more commonplace where people will notice the letterboxing, which is the top and the bottom. So what's the application here? For filmmakers, this can create visually compelling images that draw the audience's attention into the whole image or have some sort of subconscious reasoning behind it. The more confined the ratio is, the tighter the composition will be, creating a narrower sense of space. Often things can start to feel hyper-focused or compressed or claustrophobic. This isn't inherently a flaw. It's just a result of a tighter ratio, which again, for example, Wes Anderson uses very well in many of his films, just due to his composition taste. He'll use different aspect ratios. More or less, it's 4:3. And so keeping in mind whether or not to choose a wider aspect ratio or not, this kind of poses a possible challenge of revealing more of the filming location. So if you have a wider aspect ratio of 2.35 or 2.4 to 1 ratio, it's going to show a little bit more. So depending on the story, what the emotions that you want the audience to feel, and your kind of budget is available to building out sets. These all kind of go into choosing the right aspect ratio. For a lot of fantasy, adventure, and sci-fi, they go with the wider aspect because, one, they've got the budget and they want to immerse everybody into that environment. So that is kind of more appealing to that aspect. Whereas maybe some dramas on TV or even in movies, they'll go for kind of Academy 1.85 to 1 ratio, which kind of gives a little bit more of a bigger rectangle, less wide kind of sense of feel. So this kind of goes into genres and commonplace of aspect ratios into different genres of movies and TV shows. And then also goes into the emotional, subconscious kind of feel that you want your audience to have. So those are that's kind of the background and application of aspect ratios.
And that was inspired by our upcoming movie review for The Lighthouse.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Shh, movie review.
A movie that has silently sat on the IMDb most popular movies for a while. It has, I did check today, it fell down a little bit, and it has not taken audiences through a whirlwind of love it or hate it. But today we are going to review the movie The Lighthouse. And I'm just going to start out by saying, before Aaron steals the show again with all of his lovely tech information, I would like to apologize for the fact that we are reviewing this movie. I do not think it deserves any notoriety.
Wow. Holy cow. I was just going to say, let me start off by saying, this is the reason why I love art house movies. This is amazing. And there's so much stuff to talk about.
I'm ashamed of this movie, and we will get into that. I will let Aaron have his moment of sharing all the technical information about it.
I will say she did warn you before the podcast of like, hey, Aaron, do you want me to give you the heads up of how I feel about this film?
I just want to apologize to everyone because I was very offended by this movie.
Wow. All right. Well, getting into the technicals of it, the director was Robert Eggers. He was previous video or movie was The Witch.
The Witch.
Blah, blah, blah.
The Witch. I like saying that. I know it's The Witch and it's said that way, but the way he makes the title, I'm like, The Witch.
The director of photography was Jaron Blaschke. He worked on The Witch with Robert Eggers, and he was also nominated for the Seattle Film Critics Society Award for Best Cinematography on that. And then he was awarded the Indie Spirit Best Cinematography and nominated for BAFTA and Critics' Choice for The Lighthouse. Just as a
He was also
Oscar
nominated cinematographer.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the score was by Mark Corvin.
I'll just say really quick, though, about the Oscar nomination. He was beat out by 1917.
Which is fair. So Mark Corvin, the score, he worked on Eggers on The Witch as well. So there's kind of a relationship there. And the first AC, which I'm giving props to because of things that I will go into in a little bit, is Eddie McInnes. He was local from Nova Scotia, which is part and parcel where they filmed this on location on a remote island, kind of around the Cape Fortune area. Apparently the weather was really harsh, terrain was difficult, and they basically built an entire functioning lighthouse complete with an actual light.
Yeah,
this is a big undertaking.
They said pretty much all the storms you see in the movie are actual storms they shot in.
Yes. And they even had seagull trainers.
Yes. And puppets.
Yeah.
Those seagulls are puppets.
Exactly. So the production team built a 70-foot tall lighthouse, attached cottage, and outer buildings, all from scratch, and during the winter for the 34 days of filming that happened.
I'm curious if it's still there.
I don't know if they tore it down or not. I'm not sure. Almost freezing rain and howling winds. It was very fitting for this movie. There was also a seagull trainer, like I said, with puppet stand-ins, like Kate said.
I really hope with that one scene.
Yeah. They didn't do it on location, but in post, they went to London and built some small sets with scaffolding and set pieces and redid some of the action with the trained seagulls. And then they were comped in to the scenes later. Also,
all the internal lighthouse scenes where they stand right next to the light were done with a smaller...
I'm going to get into that.
Loop and... Okay. Sorry.
So this was shot in a 1.19 to 1 aspect ratio.
Oh, really? And this has nothing to do with
which
your inspiration.
Ties back into my tech talk. This was period accurate as far as the aspect ratio goes. And the film the camera that they used was a Panavision Panaflex. And the lenses that they used were Panavision Millennium XL2s and 1930s to 1940s Baltar lenses. And this isn't the super Baltars that everybody, I'm sure, is familiar with. These were the OGs. They are super old, as you could say, by the 1930s and 1940s manufacture date.
Can we please get to the point where we can be like this director of photography where he just goes and is like, hey, can you show me what's not in the menu, what might wow me? And then they just hand it to him. And said, here you go. You can play with these.
This was my next point. So he went to Panavision and he wanted something kind of not on the menu. He wanted to be surprised. And what they handed him was a 1840 Petzeval lens, which is one of those 3-lens carousel style, kind of similar to the Bolaflex, which is more commonly used by, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name again, the person that did The Shining. He's like my favorite director.
Kubrick,
yeah, Stanley Kubrick. He was famous for using that type of stuff too. But this basically created swirls of out of focus backgrounds and kind of crazy edge effects that aren't very subtle at all. But they use these only for heightened moments and flashbacks kind of thing. They also, for people that I'm sure are super interested into this, using the film, let me see here.
He has a lot of notes, everyone, just to commentate what he's doing.
Yes, thank you. The film that they used was Kodak's Eastman XX black and white 5222 film stock. And they, in combination with this, they also used custom filters that emulated early 1900s orthochromatic stock, which was sensitive to ultraviolet, blue, and green light, but not red. And Schneider Optics, which I'm a fan of, I personally use their IR&D filters for our films. But they custom built these orthochromatic filter, which eliminated all red light to emulate the film stocks that were predominantly used up until the 1930s. And therefore, this makes it more era accurate. And with the filters, skin tones and everything recorded much darker. You would see every pore and blood vessel. So it was very, very detailed and gave this very specific texture they wouldn't normally get in regular black and white film.
The only place they did not use that filter on was the mermaid scene because they wanted her to be pretty.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Going back to the aspect ratio, because I don't know if you know this one fact, I'll throw it in. It was shot in the same aspect ratio as the Metropolis.
That makes sense. I've seen and liked the Metropolis, but I didn't know that was the aspect ratio. That's cool.
One fact I found.
Both great films. So since this film was being used, there was a lot of light that was required, which was insane. So for the interior scenes, for night interiors, normally it was shown just with a oil lamp. And this lantern actually was a 800 watt halogen bulb in order to properly expose all these shots, which is crazy because I don't know if everybody's very familiar with how much heat is output and light is output by a 800 watt halogen, but it's quite a bit. And then close-ups for those shots that weren't the wides or mediums were further augmented with China balls to give a little bit of sparkle.
Wait,
hold on really fast. Going back to, you said it's 800 watt. I think the highest bulb that like you buy for your home is 100 watt.
Yeah.
So think about that, 100 watt, and you see how bright that is at home. And then they had like 800 watt.
Yeah.
So-
Typical. It's like a 60 watt is like a commonplace like household bulb.
So just put that in your mind when he talks about like how bright this is.
And only being, an arm's length distance away from it.
Yeah. And then Chris, sorry, you had a...
Yeah. China ball, is that like a lantern looking?
Yeah, it's
like really big,
basically a typical China ball is a wire frame and it has paper on the outside of it.
Isn't it kind of similar to like the big bulb we used when we were filming our last movie?
Yes,
like
it's
the
similar
same like
to
shape.
the aperture lantern that is kind of a more quote unquote professional, more robust version of a China ball.
Okay.
And it gives like a softer light, correct?
Yeah,
So,
it's an omnidirectional
diffuse it,
and it diffuses it, it's very typically used in dinner time scenes where they're over a table where they can just hang it above the aspect ratio crop for the camera. And they're able to kind of light in an omnidirection where they don't have to have 6 lights going on and like having all these lights go to each person. So they can just kind of light the scene with fewer lights and be able to cut between shots without having a whole bunch of setup.
And for those that might not know, can you please define omnidirection?
Omnidirection, much like a microphone, it would spread out in a 360 degree relative area. Whereas a shotgun mic or a dynamic mic would have a kind of cone shape of reception, and the other parts of that 360 circle would be significantly reduced in the decimal level.
And he is mimicking all of this with his arms.
I'm being very Italian with my expression of how I'm describing
I was going to say, I was pretty impressed. I was like, I see you using your arms. I'm wondering if you can translate that to words. And you did. I was impressed.
Hopefully it came across. That.
Yeah, it did. It did.
I just want to commentate Aaron right now. This is funny.
So yeah, getting back to the lighting for the night interiors, they were also they were lit with the 800 watt. For daytime interiors, they use mostly RE M series 9K and 18K HMIs that bounce through basically panoramas of Muslim cloth outside the windows, kind of basically creating a cyclorama or kind of like a typical photography studio kind of room where it doesn't have any perceived depth, and it's just like an infinite white source on the outside. And so people that might not have the scale for this, but a 9K and an 18K HMI are not typically used nowadays. That is a whole heck of a lot of light output. And so that they needed that to blast through the windows to kind of get this interior bounce light to give a naturalistic feel for what they were recording on.
And you cannot tell. It looks so natural in the movie.
It looks so good.
I just don't want to be those actors. I was reading stuff where they're like, we were just so exhausted filming this movie. And I'm just thinking about like the heat, the weather, and all this stuff. And like, it is a very physical movie. And I'm just like, I don't want to be you.
It's very similar to what was that Leonardo DiCaprio movie where they used only natural light and you got attacked by a bear?
Oh,
The Revenant. Yeah. It seemed like it was very similar to that, but in a different kind of way. But it is a very grueling, very physically demanding aspect of this. And for the people that did all the costumes and makeup and stuff, I'm sure it was an absolute nightmare trying to keep the sweat from just all the practical lights and everything like that off of there. And then for the moonlight, these exteriors were created from like 500 feet away, 2 Arri Max 18Ks that were perched on a 125-foot crane. And then they put a stabilized head for the camera on a techno crane and operated it remotely. So they could kind of get really close to the water without having the camera being splashed on and being able to get these, very, very unique camera moves going. And then just above the camera, they actually mounted a 2K open face blonde light, which is basically just a halogen 2K to create like effects of the water and getting a caustic feedback of light on the water, so you could get a nice unique texture and kind of balance of the lighting on there.
It was also probably the scariest scene that they needed to shoot because of the tides and the storms. So they had to be very specific about getting Patterson in the water and keeping that safe for him.
Well, and going back to the lenses that were used, they were 80, 100-year-old lenses. You get salt water in them, they're gone. Like
80,
you can't
100?
80 to 100 years.
Oh, I thought you said 800.
I'm making up names or numbers now. No, but yeah, they're relics. They're ancient. They are handled with care and very fragile. And you get any kind of weather into them, they're just done for.
I don't want to be the person that was in charge of those.
So it's a very brazen project to kind of go out and like, yeah, we're going to do this black and white film that requires an insane amount of power and light, and also super old ancient lenses that are very fragile, and and doing all this in kind of a New England area, kind of next to raging water, is just crazy. But yeah, so going back to the actual lighthouse, they actually had built a 8-sided acrylic lighthouse lens, because usually with these lenses, it's either an oil lamp or it's a very dinky halogen bulb. And with this lens, they're able to magnify that power source to a great deal so that, way out to sea, they could actually notice it, With this one, they did it in acrylic because it was way cheaper. It still ended up costing like $100,000, but if it was in glass, it would have been over $1 million.
Oof.
So it's kind of crazy. But instead of doing an oil lamp or a halogen bulb, they actually put in a 6K HMI, which, holy cow, you could imagine having a lens that's that crazy and having a 6K HMI in there. Basically, when they did that, they were getting calls from people out to sea that was able to see it 12 nautical miles out, which is insane.
Wow.
So they were only able to use the 6K HMI bulb in there for exterior wide shots. For the kind of, if there was any actor that was close to this, they would have to switch it out for a 2K tungsten. And they did that actually not on location. They actually did that on scaffolding in a studio where Willem Dafoe is up there doing his thing.
His thing.
Yeah. With a sock on his genitals, slathered in sun lotion.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to say spoiler if we're going to spoil anything.
I'm not spoiling anything. But yeah, so this is just a technical and logistical kind of nightmare, if you want to call it that, just due to the fact that they're so remote. They require so much power, so much energy, so much lighting that is, not necessarily used nowadays, and using all of this old tech to kind of get this project to where the director and the director of photography wanted it to be. And I can say they accomplished that very well.
Okay, and then a few facts that Aaron did not get. I'm going to throw these in there.
Yeah, go for it.
Just to have some fun.
I think I ran out of breath.
Just to have some more fun facts to wrap all that part up with. It is inspired by a true story of 2 lighthouse keepers who were named Tom. And in that inspired story, one of them dies. And then this it was heavily blocked because of the aspect ratio, the fact that they, the sets were specifically built to work around the aspect ratio, such as the kitchen table scene and all of that stuff. And because of it being heavily blocked, almost all movement in that you see, like touching his glasses or anything specific like that was actually written into the script, which is very
in depth.
If you're not the director, it's kind of rude to put all that in.
Yeah. Because you want to give them space to kind of improvise and kind of bring their role into themselves,
Yes. So because he is the writer-director, he actually co-wrote this with his brother. But because he's the writer-director...
Which was the first time he did that.
Because he was the writer-director, he was able to do what he wanted in there and be able to essentially put his own notes from the beginning in there.
And can I say that I'm just incredibly impressed with the amount of research that went into his story. Like, aside from all this technical stuff that I rambled on nonsensically for the last however long, and probably everybody fell asleep to, but the story and the language and everything that was involved in this was a Herculean effort about sourcing different linguistics and referencing many different books and kind of combining this very particular niche area of locale along with a particular type of industry and work to compile a language and have this verbiage to show in this is just crazy amount of work.
And now we get to the point of why you're really wanting to listen to this movie review. I will not take away, I will preface this, I will not take away from the technical, cinematographic artistry of the film. I do think that getting Oscar nominated for Best Cinematography was deserved. And I 100% see why they didn't win. I mean, they had really big competition. I 100% agree. I think it is beautifully shot. I think with what they used, the black and white is extremely, extremely dynamic. I really appreciated the like touches to, wow, that felt like a 1920s movie. Like some of the shots, some of the angles were very reminiscent of that. And I really appreciated that. But taking all of that away, this movie is still a representation of two white men making a movie of their dreams, South Park style, with a bunch of fart jokes and tentacle sex. It is racist. It is sexist. It essentially highlights two white men who want to make it sympathetic that they have a hard life, but in our political climate and with what is going on, it's inappropriate. And I'm sorry.
Very interesting. There was a few BAFTA conversations that I was watching, and there was actually a lot of women saying that this was a feminist movie.
Okay. But here's the problem. For a lot of film critics who want to run around, I actually wrote a really amazing review on this movie that hit close to home to me. And I'm going to use the word that she used in the review of calling people film kids. Because essentially, this does feel like a movie where, no one really likes Citizen Kane. Let's be honest.
I do.
And I'm going to get why I'm calling you a film kid.
Okay.
People want to run around. People want to run around and talk about these movies and how they're amazing, and you don't get it because you didn't get the understanding and underlying things of all this. But when it comes down to it, it's just, to them, an extreme amazing movie is one that devolves into the men's psyche and has some layer of sex. And the only point that we're going to show a woman is her naked somewhere in this. The only time that a woman was ever shown in this movie is when she was naked, and spoiler alert, having sex with her. And her most beautiful form. There's nothing about that. Why is that the only moment? Why does it matter that these white men are in this lighthouse together and look at sympathy? It does not matter. I'm over it.
Would I argue that it's not technically a woman?
Okay, but it's still the representation of the female body and how it's used in such a negative way.
Well, and I like the fact that this movie gave such a ambiguity to just it in general, because you have so many people have so many different versions of what this means. And I personally like that aspect in many movies, but for this one in particular, it kind of has a tip of the hat to Prometheus and the Greek mythology, and kind of a old guard versus new guard, and people versus young people.
It still comes down to the same thing about all film kids movies. It's like, let's put way too much symbolism in here. Let's put way too much things to make our movies look like it means something, not represent anything, try to make them sympathetic. It doesn't work. It is overdone. It is annoying. It is not progressive. So fine. Let's put a phallus up, whatever 20-foot tall phallus, and talk about sexuality of white men. And that does not matter to me. I'm sorry. I got really mad the minute the tentacles showed up too. I was like, I'm done. I honestly, if I wasn't reviewing this movie, I would have turned it off. And
wow,
I got really, 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 really angry watching this movie.
I liked the aspect of showing men at that time and the devolving insanity.
But why does that matter? We have so many movies about white men and their insanity. You mentioned the Leonardo DiCaprio. We have all these movies, and why does this matter anymore?
I wouldn't say to limit them, but to bring out more people, more different stories. I'm not saying that it needs to be more commonplace, because it doesn't, but I'm saying that, movies and stories and everything that is a media outlet of artists should, more the better, you know what I mean? But and we can judge them for what they are, and everybody's going to have their own opinion on it. And we need a wide variety so that we can have a spectrum of this is now enjoyment.
There's nothing wide variety about this movie.
I'm not saying that this has a wide variety. I'm saying that this has layers, and there's different opinions that people will have on it.
And we get to nothing about it. Spoiler, they die in the end in the most disgusting manner. There's nothing about this. If he had come out to be gay in the end, that might have had a little bit to it. But
why force that?
I think
because there was no point to it.
what I really wish is I wish they would have taken their technical expertise and used it to a solid story or plot rather than what they did with it.
This is just every other film kid movie where they throw in too much symbolism to say, hey, we're going to make you think like, oh, look at us, we're so smart. But none of it's going to connect in a way to actually like give message or tell a story that's not just trying to give sympathy for people that have had too much sympathy for hundreds of years.
I feel like they were doing some sort of era accurate representation. So back in that era, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was a whole lot of lighthouse keepers that were women.
But why does that era matter to right now? Why can't we talk about...
Why doesn't it matter?
But why can't we just talk about more progressive stories of the time? Do
you think that they would have made this project because it needs to matter at this particular time? They made it because that was the thing that was on their mind and they were interested in the literature of the time. I feel like putting a time frame on when things can be released and whatnot, I think that's totally limiting to the artist at hand.
I was very offended. The fact that they showed the only form of the female body was that he could have sex with her. This is like super offensive.
I felt that it was interesting representation of people being isolated from everybody and slowly going insane and believing in this ordained kind of weird obsession and having that take over their entire being of existence and it not really being a part of reality, but it was part of their reality and like among many other things, but I don't know. So
I think I'm going to go ahead and filter in so my section's going to become somewhat useless now because I'm going to jump in with more general audience perspective, which is I wouldn't recommend this to a general audience. I don't think in any way it applies to a small
it's
niche,
very art house.
A very art house,
Yeah.
very small
Film
niche
kids.
of people.
Art house, that's what it's called.
And so at that point, for me, I don't know how to explain what I want to say. It really does apply only to the small niche of people, and that's it.
White men.
So
I'm sorry. I'm very strong about this. It's just... I
didn't see the white male chauvinistic kind of aspect to it, and maybe that's because I'm biased, but I really didn't go that deep. I went into more heady kind of scenario of power struggles and mythology and stuff like that. I didn't really go that far into like this person's female or this person's male and whatnot, but maybe that's my fault.
I mean, I get it. It's just, and I think you're very progressive, and I think you're great and all that, and you do think about things. It's just that is a difference between someone that like has had things happen and has like, I'm a woman, so I do see that.
So let's have a thought experiment. If Robert Eggers had made this movie like he was doing, he wanted it to be era accurate. So if he put females in this role, people would hate this because it wouldn't make any sense. It would not be accurate and it would have a different connotation to it. And the point that he was trying to get across would be lost.
Okay.
It would be too forced.
And here's actually something that I have had a really, really hard time to think about, because I think that is a really important thing to, as we progress forward and we talk about inclusive and inclusion and having, diversity in all of our movies, how do we portray these historical movies that we say want to be made, that having a Black person be in the role or a woman be in that role isn't accurate? And it is actually a really hard question as we move forward, because where do you, how do you do it? I mean, I think Hamilton actually in their bubble that they're able to create did an amazing job.
For sure.
Diverse casting and not caring what the skin color was when they cast Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, AK.
Well, and the same thing with the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse thing.
Well, but he is Black, and it is a Black Spider-Man.
Afro-Cuban.
Yeah. So the question that I do come up with is, then why are we making some of these movies? Why do they matter then? If they're not inclusive and it's about the same old that has been shoved down our throats for centuries as white men, self-important stories, do their stories actually matter really when they've had the stage in the forefront for so long? Like, does it matter that these stories get made right now when it's just all we've seen?
I would say I see where you're going with it. But at the same time, why are we going to limit?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not actually trying to answer that. I just say that this is actually something I've spent a couple months thinking about, because I am wondering, like I watched the Enola Holmes movie, which is supposed to be a period piece.
Right.
And there was a question that when I watched with my friends, they were like, oh, well, there were Black people in the roles, but they weren't in the correct roles. And then it's also like, well, how would you have included? And do we make that? Because then it's a white center movie, but then do we make it a Black girl? And we ignore what's historically, it's this weird question. And
I feel the right way to do this is to let the project speak for themselves. If there's a project out there that wants to have those diversity check marks next to them, okay, great. How do you incorporate that? How successful that will be? Will it be dependent on your ideas and logistics and outcome of that project? If you want to have something that doesn't do that, great.
I guess for me with this movie, where I just was super offended and hard with it, is that in the current climate of things that are going on, it just felt like every self-important movie where the same things in these white center movies, where it's like, let's have sympathetic white male characters, let's have some sort of like masculinity questioning of their sexuality, and the only way that we are going to show, like, I would have preferred not to have the woman in it then, like at all, in any form, because it just felt that she was used as a vice. And
I feel like she was a siren, obsession for the male mind.
But it's just really hard. And I was really fun. And to me, and my own personal journey of movies and making and all this stuff, I sat here and I was like, why am I giving voice to this movie at all? To me. And that's why I was like really hard. And I almost called you guys and was like, I don't want to review this movie because I don't want to give voice to this right now.
I feel like if we zoom out in time and we assess art, although it has some connotation to the timeline and the social construct that it was built in, it matters less and less the older that it gets. And I feel like this has a certain timeless, classic feel to it. And there's a lot of great acting in it. I feel like Willem Dafoe and especially Robert Pattinson in this role was seminal for showing his true range of capabilities. And I mean, giving him more props than what his roles were kind of sequestered to in other projects.
Twilight.
Yeah, exactly.
And I get that. And that's why I do feel bad too. Cause technically this movie, like I was watching a ton of behind the scenes
photographic.
Stuff,
every single frame is just gorgeous.
It's amazing.
Well, that's the thing, is that from a technical perspective, it might be like a classic, but I really honestly do feel from a story perspective,
I enjoyed the story.
This thing is going to go nowhere.
Actually,
quick.
I do want to talk a little bit about story, because I do feel like I've gone on this tangent of like political thing and all this stuff. And a few things about the story that I actually do struggle with on a just story level, technique wise. Mm-hmm. One of them is, we have no idea who these characters are at all. Why do I care about them? Like, and honestly, like not even like from a political standpoint or white male or anything. It's like, honestly, in the way they're written, it's like, why do I care what happens to these guys in the end? And who are they? Like at the very end, we get to touch on Rob Patterson's character, his Tom, and like his backstory. But to me, it's like, why do I care ultimately if either of them dies or survives, or that they've been stuck on this island?
Well, okay. So in that sense, I kind of agree with you as far as like, why do I care? But I think I can kind of
you need to build
that
sympathy.
Or apply that to most everything. Is like in if I boil everything down in like most projects, I can feel like, why does it matter?
The difference between like something like this and say like a movie that you can build is like, you build the sympathy is you also know who the backstories of these characters are, and you want to see what their character arc is. This movie, except for going in complete psychosis, there is barely any character
I felt
arc.
I got enough character. With Defoe's character, he was kind of the establishment, the person that was in charge of the lighthouse. He was very proud of his job, and almost to a fault, and was very obsessive with it. And later,
he's that way the whole time.
Yes.
There's no character arc then.
But the thing is that at no point did they establish a reason for me to even care about who they were or what would happen down the road.
Well,
why do I care that they're having mental breakdowns?
Sure.
I at no point did I actually care, because I had no connection to these characters.
And then at the very end, we find out that, Rob Patterson's character might actually like be a murderer. And then when he has this breakdown, the sympathy, it's like, I don't care. Like you didn't build this up enough for me to feel or even have an understanding that, you know, we would reach this point and then have sympathy for their, because, you know, it's about like, if you take in all the symbolism that you're talking about and the struggle with masculinity and, you know, the Greek god stories and their struggle and like his psychosis at the end and the
obsession with greatness and, you know,
why do I care about that? Because I was never given a character to actually make him flesh and blood enough for me to be able to be like, oh, I want to know what happens. I care. He, to me, is very cardboard.
I mean, that's totally valid. I understand where you're coming from. For me, Robert Patterson's character, kind of coming off the boat as a fresh chap or whatever, kind of not. See,
we never knew that though until the very end. Like we weren't given enough information.
I felt that from the very beginning. He felt very green and very like he didn't want to be there. He didn't know what was going on. He was just there for the money and he just needed that next paycheck kind of thing, you know? And he didn't really have any enthusiasm with it, but he knew that this was his best chance for this mysterious background of his circumstances.
Well, I'm glad that you got that.
Fully comes out later on in the movie.
I feel like it actually
from the get-go for me, like I was like, okay, I'm on board. This guy doesn't want to be here, and then slowly turns into madness due to his like overarching, powerful like boss that is kind of borderline crazy, and then he kind of becomes obsessive and it just deludes from there. And like I don't know, like maybe I missed the mark on some of these other things, but I was on there.
No, it's great. I think that you can piece it together in the end. I don't think it's like as clear as you want. And like,
but I like the aloof kind of thing. So that kind of just goes into my favoritism for like those types of stories of not really like dot connecting.
And I also think so. Yeah, you like the abstract, and I think also the technical artistry of it too helps you buy into the story because you love that, right? And so as you see this,
it kind of separated it for me a little bit.
Okay.
I was able to appreciate some of the story. I would agree that the story is not the strong suit for me, much more the score and the technicals behind it. But I also felt that the story itself was interesting, unique, in some instances. In others, it was more kind of pandering.
Kate rolled her eyes.
Yeah. In some instances, it was unique, i.e. like curmudgeon naval Lighthouse from the 1800s. Like there's not many films that I can say, oh, this is like this. You know what I mean?
I feel like I could come up with a list.
Okay, well, you're more experienced than me with that. But I would say that it is kind of in somewhat successful in the sense that it's two people in a room and there's not like all this crazy shit happening. And it in that sense, it still had some sort of success for the story for me.
I will say I thought it was very interesting because it was one of the first movies I did see that more gaslighting, manipulation as well, in the form of him doing that. And I thought that was really interesting. But that's also where they really started to lose me in the sense of the story, because I was like, wait, what? And why would he want to manipulate this guy this much? And that's where like some of the character stuff didn't come through, because I'm like, well, why does it matter? Why are you manipulating him that much? Why do you care?
I think it kind of came into play of like his obsession with the overall power that he worshiped to, and the mysterious unknown demise of his previous postmate.
All right, I feel like Chris.
Yeah, one thing I want to say is that everyone can definitely see here that we are able to share our views on these movies and disagree, and we're giving our honest reviews on these movies in this podcast, right? So, you know, one of us might absolutely love it and the other one might absolutely hate it, and it shows in this when we review them, and that's because we're being honest.
I mean, we'll see what happens to me if Aaron's not on the next podcast.
Yeah. Aaron's like, I quit. I'm done.
No, I'm more thinking like, you know, whoopsie.
No, I felt it was very interesting to get you guys' perspectives on this.
Chris,
obviously I had my experience. I'd like to know Chris's experience.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't heard enough.
We kind of took over, but
yeah. So I would, like I said earlier, from my perspective, definitely not meant for the general audience at all. This is definitely a art house, you know, very specific niche film. I honestly do have to agree with what Kate was saying on a lot of it, where I really did feel that it was geared in those manners that she brought up. So,
but why does every art house film have to be this style?
Well, because I will somewhat, so because I remember we watched Over the Black Rainbow, and I actually kind of enjoyed that one. Or sorry, yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I kind of enjoyed that, and that's more. That's not
is
the
that
same.
Not our house? It's a different realm.
Oh, okay.
We're talking. This is like,
I would say
art school film kids. The other one's more like
I would say that it's indie art. It's like art house area, but it's a different subgenre than this one.
Okay.
But
this is classic, like very classic movie, Citizen Kane.
Kind of
art
neoclassical.
house. And Black Rainbow one is more like technical, like out there, trippy. I don't know what better word to use, but like
I would say it's like a sci-fi psychological thing.
Yeah, it's very different.
It's a different high concept than this one.
Yeah.
This one's like traditional, but has some abstract aspects to it.
One thing I will say is that when I was reading reviews for The Lighthouse, it seemed like a lot of people were like, well, if you don't like this film, then you obviously don't know what real art and film are. And I think that got under my skin. And I think that was
binary.
It was. And I think that really got under my skin because I'm like, I'm sorry, this just isn't my thing. I did not enjoy it.
It's not a lot of people's thing, to be honest. But I will say and reinforce that, you know, as much as this may be one particular thing, I am glad that there's projects out there of all shapes and sizes and colors and whatnot. It gives variety and it gives a spectrum of which art can be appreciated by. Everybody doesn't need to like everything.
I will agree with that. I just hope that they can take what they have in terms of art and maybe apply it to something that's a little bit less.
I will say that I'm looking forward to the next project because I'm going to be interested in what they do, because on a technical side, this was phenomenal. I love the music on it. Robert Eggers is really going to be an interesting one to watch.
But my concern is that Robert Eggers wrote it, right? He co-wrote it with his brother. So yes. I'm not that hopeful that unless he gets somebody else to help him write it and get him out of his little box.
Well, so this was, I mean, it was interesting because this was in part inspired by a female author from the late 1800s.
Was it a female author?
Yeah.
Oh.
Among Edgar Allan Poe and also H.P. Lovecraft.
It's a true story.
But
it's based off of a true story. Yes,
the thing about this movie, though, is that like I think everything under the sun inspired it. I mean,
did you see The Witch?
I did. Yeah, I enjoyed that from a technical standpoint.
Okay. Now I think we have beat this dead horse enough. So let's go around for ratings. We'll start with Aaron.
Oh man. Okay, so I'm gonna probably be the highest score on here.
I think.
It's gonna be a 9 for me.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris.
1.
I'm a 1.5, and that's only for technical. The only reason it's that is technical. But I'm always for story anyway.
For sure.
So awesome. And now we will stop talking about this movie and switch to trivia.
This isn't a trivia. This is a stick-up, see? Give me all your gin and chocolate.
And welcome to Trivia with your host, me, Chris. And to remind everyone, Aaron and Kate are going to be answering questions, and whoever wins the best out of 5, if Aaron wins, then Kate will have to buy him some gin, and if Kate wins, then Aaron will have to buy her some chocolate. So to remind everyone on the scores, Kate has 3. 3?
I believe she has 3. We have 1 tie, and I have 0.
That's it. So it's whoever hits 5. I'm sorry. Yeah. I said that wrong
best
earlier.
Yeah.
If it's the best of... Well, no, it's not the best of 5. It's whoever hits
First
5.
To 5. Okay, gotcha.
First to 5. Otherwise, you would have already bought her chocolate. So this week is on naming the director. And it made me laugh because I should have done The Shining because that came up earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
Who's the one that directed this?
Although now that I have in my head, there's probably not a question on there that actually involves that.
No, there's not.
Oh, man.
Oh, oh, man.
Oh, man.
Oh, my gosh. Anyway, all right. So Kate is not with us at this exact moment, so she cannot hear the question.
She is in the professionally soundproofed room.
All right. Question 1. Name the director. And remember, you can have 1 hit on any of these questions if you can't remember.
Cool.
Question 1. Who directed The Wolf of Wall Street?
Martin Scorsese.
There you go. Question 2. Who directed The Lighthouse?
Robert Eggers.
There we go. I made them easy this week, I think. All right. Question 3. Throwback question. Who directed Bad Times at the El Royale?
Damn, I totally was spacing on that one.
Now you get 3 guesses, right? And you also have a hint available still.
Hint. I will.
Okay.
I will defer.
He also directed Cabin in the Woods.
Unfortunately, that is not helping.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on this one. I'll have to pass.
okay. Do you want to give any shot at it?
I will refrain
Just
from
throw
embarrassing
throw out 3 random directors. Just take a stab.
No, my mind's blanking on it.
All right. Perfect. All right. So you got 2 out of 3. So that's pretty good. So
Yeah,
let's
it's
go
not
get
bad.
Kate.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Now we have back our beautiful MC.
Whoop whoop.
All right. So this week's questions are name the director.
Oh.
Wah, wah, wah.
The pressure's on.
Damn.
Remember, you have 1 hint
Okay.
and you get 3 guesses.
Okay.
All right. Question 1. Who directed The Wolf of Wall Street?
I have no idea. Hint.
He also directed Raging Bull.
Ooh, good shout out.
I know it's not Scorsese.
What's that?
It's Scorsese?
It is. There you go. You got it.
What's his first name?
Martin?
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, good point.
I
Good
will-
point.
yeah, I will accept
he's
this
like,
now.
He's
Yeah.
like,
We aren't doing half credit shit here.
Whatever.
What do you think this is?
Okay.
all right. Question 2.
Mm-hmm.
You better get this one right. Who directed The Lighthouse?
Roger Edgar, right? Or Edgar? What? No?
Close.
Is it because I didn't get the first name right?
Correct.
Oh, well, come on. This isn't fair.
This is entirely fair. Thank you very much.
Did you give it to him?
Well, he got it right.
I am correct.
Well, I probably shouldn't have said that until you guessed yours.
Thanks.
Sorry.
You didn't say I had to get the whole name.
Oh,
Oh,
man.
was there a conversation before this
now,
happened?
Now I'm gonna have to start putting.
Collusion, automatic disqualification.
You have to name. You have to name the whole name, every single consonant, and every single vowel.
I don't remember his first name. I just remember his last name.
I said it like 3 times. At least.
I thought it was Roger.
Close.
You get 2 more guesses.
Ugh. Robert?
That is correct.
Okay, good. Okay.
Question 3.
Aaron, you suck.
Just trying to uphold the high quality level here.
Whatever.
That was a good catch because for some reason, when she said Roger, I heard Robert, and so I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, she got it right." Okay,
And,
except for I think it's Robert Eggers, and I think you said the first time you said Egger.
Edgar.
I
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
Edgar the second time. Anyway.
Okay, question 3. So this is a throwback question. Who directed Bad Times at the El Royale?
Oh, I can see his face so clearly in my head. Like,
That is not an answer.
I know that, but I can see what he looks like. I already used my clue too.
Yes.
I have no idea. No, I have it's a blank.
Okay. Cool.
Are you passing on it?
Yes.
So you both actually passed on this one.
Whatever.
We're a tie.
What is his name?
Drew Goddard.
Drew Goddard.
Yeah, see, there's no way I was going to remember that.
How about we describe him? Because then I'd win.
How would we have?
I would say I can describe him and then we
Oh,
can win.
yeah, of course.
I can win.
So, for the second time, we have entered the tiebreaker.
Oh boy. Hopefully this is the decider.
Yes, last time we did the tiebreaker, we ended up actually ending in a tie because
Yes.
you guys.
No, that's not true. I got the last one.
No,
No.
that one ended
No.
in a tie because it was Ridley.
No, that was 2 ago. The last one was Night Before Christmas and I got it right.
Oh, she's right.
Ha.
Wait, this is the third tiebreaker. then.
Yes. I got the last one out.
Oh,
very
so you guys have
quickly.
actually been pretty competitive. You just tend to lose in overtime.
Yeah. Because she has a loud mouth and she can say things really fast.
Whatever.
All right, you guys ready?
I honestly knew that one before you.
Mm.
All right. Who directed the following film? Jaws.
Steven Spielberg. Oh yeah! Woo!
And Aaron has won his first game.
Holy
Congratulations.
shit.
How does it feel?
I don't know what to do with my hands.
All right. So to remind everyone now, the current score is Kate 3, Aaron
don't have
1,
a 0 anymore.
1 tie.
Thank you. I will have my 3.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Movies and Mayhem. If you like what you heard, make sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on to make sure you never miss an episode. You can also follow along with us on Twitter and Instagram at Zero Fault Films, and our website is zerofaultfilms.com. Make sure to drop any questions or comments on Twitter.